Hello everybody, welcome to Now You're Cooking. It's Thursday afternoon, which means we're doing a live demo. And tonight we are going to talk oysters with John Herrigel from Maine Oyster Company and Jordi St from Merritt Island Oysters, and several other hats that he wears as well. And as they shuck, or once they have shucked a few, I'm going to start frying some oysters for an oyster po' boy sandwich, which is going to be really good. Next week is pho and summer rolls with Chris Toy, and this is in collaboration with the Ellsworth Adult Ed, who has who's reading a book called The Best We Could Do, and it's a graphic novel. It's a memoir written by a Thai woman, and so we're going to be doing Thai food for them, but everybody in this part of the state is welcome to join us too. It's going to be really yummy. All right, guys, let's talk oysters. What is an oyster?
You want to start off, John?
I go up on it.
I told you I'd have some tough questions.
Yeah, we could definitely do it.
What is an oyster?
This is very unique being on Facebook Live, so I don't think I've ever done this before.
Well, there you go.
An oyster, this is an oyster right here, and it's, I guess, hard to know what everyone's level of knowledge of an oyster. An oyster is a bivalve.
That's what, yeah.
A bivalve is essentially an organism from the ocean or an animal from the ocean. It has two shells. What makes the oyster unique as a bivalve? What would be other bivalves? A mussel, a clam, a scallop.
Scallops.
The oyster has like a top flat shell and then like more rounded bottom shell. And that will play into our shucking demonstration. This is a dirty oyster because these are actually off of the Cape Small Farm, which is in Small Point Harbor on the east side of Casco Bay, harvested 2 hours ago and didn't have time to wash them.
So they're about as fresh as you can get.
They are. And
unless you shuck it right on the boat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that would be correct.
And the only other thing I'll add about oysters they are actually filter feeders. So they're actually going to, as the nutrients flow through the water column, the oyster takes in what it needs, and then it'll actually get rid of what it does not need. So oysters filter, an adult oyster about this size can filter about 50 gallons of water a day. So they're actually kind of a net positive for the oceans. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Can you ask, do people ask questions on this?
Yeah, if anybody asks, if you want to ask questions, Karen will read them out to us and we can take it from there. Yeah, so feel free to ask questions.
Yeah. Jordi and I were talking about not knowing this was going to be a live Facebook, opening up more as much as questions. We were just on a panel last night down in Portland at the Ocean Cluster and chatting about it, and it was kind of an open dialogue around the oyster. So I think we could, I guess, shuck the oyster, but if people have questions, it's almost easier to then maybe just talk about it.
I do have another very pressing question.
All right.
What's the deal with not eating oysters in the months with an R?
Oh.
Well,
Not eat,
or do you eat them in the
what
months
I've
with an
always
R?
heard is the months ending in BER, right, is good months to eat them because that would be October, November, December. And those months are when the oysters are actually storing up their glycogen stores. They're trying to get enough fat inside them so that they can last all winter. These oysters, when the temperature here in Maine, the water temp dips below, and it varies, maybe that like 45-ish degrees, give or take, they actually basically just shut themselves off for the wintertime. So they're not really growing. They're more or less hibernating for the winter. So that's why I've heard people say the BER thing, because then they've kind of like, they're nice, fat, plump, juicy, and ready for the wintertime.
Well, I'm quite a bit older than you guys, so it used to be in any month with an R, which would be everything except May, June, July, and August.
Okay.
Right?
And I think what's interesting, we're very focused on the Maine oyster and the Maine aquaculture scene.
Yeah.
Oysters like warm water. So Maine is not like your traditional spot to grow an oyster. Yes, the Damerscott regions has a big history, but that's a warm river. But if you take the collective coast of Maine, very little good for growing. With warming oceans, it is getting better, and it does make a great oyster. But so much of these, kind of things, like Nevernar, all come from oysters that are grown in the Mid-Atlantic and the South, where you wouldn't want to eat the oysters in those warm months because they're producing their sperm and egg, and they're just very gammy and just not very. And there's think everything has bacteria in it. The minute this comes out of the water in a 90-degree day in the South, it is going to get very, very toxic very, very quickly. Plus, literally the water temperature is 80 to 90 degrees
down there.
So you can't, it's unhealthy to eat them. We're here.
Yeah.
So it's a little unique, but up here, those are the better months to eat it because that is when they're producing. So it's kind of, we're using the reason I think that I use all the time, same reason.
Yeah.
But the reality is that's all because of the other months were not the good months to have it, where the lion's share of every oyster in America has really been grown for the history of the oyster.
Yeah. So, and the Indians, the Native Americans, used to eat a lot of oysters in the shell middens. Right?
Yes.
Especially on the Damascata.
Yeah, so especially in the Damascata, actually. So one of my other hats here is I do work for the Maine Island Trail Association. We actually just did a big talk with what's called the midden minders, who did exactly that. They study the shell heaps, and they try to help preserve those so that we'll keep that ancient, history going that is very much documented right now. So
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And we are lucky here as in geographically Bath, the New Meadows River is where Jordi and I are both members of this New Meadows River Co-op.
Oh, let's put on another hat. Here we go.
It didn't have the history of the Damascata River, but we are essentially starting to write the history, all us new farmers here, from an aquaculture scene on the New Meadows. So it's a very exciting time to be in the industry in this area, both as a consumer and as a producer as well, which is
cool.
So.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's start shucking
Can we
some
move all the hats
oysters,
over?
and I'll start frying some oysters.
Yeah,
And
right. Do you have a shucking knife too, or no?
No, I didn't bring.
Oh, here, go ahead. You start off. So John, by the way, just came back from St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Where he had to shuck with a bunch of people, but 60,000 oysters?
60,000 oysters,
Yeah.
30 shuckers, 4-day event at a brewery in St. Louis. It was a very unique experience. It's
how's the hand feeling?
It's a rule. Okay, lesson number one in shucking. I guess you want to have the right tools to begin with. So a towel is very, very helpful because it helps stabilize the oyster. A glove is also very, very helpful. More so on the hand that you're going to hold the oyster in, or do it like a lot of shuckers will do it holding in a hand. To start, you kind of want to keep
your hand away.
Keep your hand away, and you gloves on both hands, and not a thick glove, not a thin glove, just like a middle-sized glove is probably the ideal glove. And if we were saying there's like that top shell and that bottom shell, you want to kind of put the bottom shell down. And every oyster, if it wasn't so dirty, has a little hinge.
The reason for putting the bottom side down, too, is because there's actually liquid inside that oyster. So if you shuck it this way, everything just kind of falls out. This will help to keep it in there.
And a well-shaped oyster, you can see they're all like a snowflake, all a little different. If you focus on like the hinges, that's probably the thing to see all these like hinges, hinge. That's a very hard one to shuck because you can't get into the hinge. The perfect hinge is one that's kind of like that. The hinge that goes down is very, very challenging too because it's hard to go up. So if you don't have a knife, you have a shucker. You're going to be doing it on this stage demonstrations for sure because I've almost destroyed my hands on these things personally. So
we'll have Mike
Mike
demonstrate the oyster shoe.
So I'll show the second level technique, and Mike will show what a beginner can do. But no joke.
Low blow.
I almost severed my vein on a different type of one. I would like to learn how to use it myself, actually.
Okay.
So, shucking an oyster, you have the top shell, the bottom shell. You go on the hinge. You want to go in on the plane of the shell. So you don't. It's like it's going too shallow, going too deep. So like you kind of want to visualize going into the oyster, so you're going into that cup area. So I'm like here. I'm gonna like get that tip. Yeah. So there's different. You need a shucking knife. These are medium. These are beginner knives and a little harder as a result because they're not sharp. The sharper the tip is, the much easier it is to shuck the oyster.
And to stab
and to go in your hand. Yes.
And to stab and go in the hand.
Yep, there's both.
But if you do the right techniques, you really should not be worried about that because you're not really going towards your hand. If you're going in the right angle, you're going to go into the oyster.
Yep.
And you want to keep it, I think that's 6 o'clock on a clock. You don't want to go to like 5 o'clock. You don't want to go to 7 o'clock because then you're going to slide that way or slide that way. You stay at 6, and the motion is a twist like that. It's not like this.
Yep, you wiggle with your wrist almost a little bit.
So
that's how I think of it.
Talking. Yeah, like you wiggle your wrist.
Yeah.
So I'm holding the oyster firm, not up here, like kind of like right around here. And it's literally, I'm just like twisting it back and forth till it kind of pops open. I mean, and then it pops open. They call it the lollipop. Like, we don't really teach it that way, but it's like kind of like a lollipop. You're like into the oyster like a lollipop. When you're in, that's like most of the battle, but every oyster has one muscle, upper right corner right there, that's connecting it, holding it together. So
They call that the abductor muscle.
The abductor muscle.
Right.
So all we really need to do is sever the top, sever the bottom. So I'm like going in, I'm still doing like that twist across the top, across to sever like that. Where is it connected to the muscle? And then it's really not connected anywhere else except for on the other side of that adductor muscle. So you can go that way, you can go that way. This is like a nice way to do it because you don't damage the meat. There you go.
Beautiful.
Jordi.
Nope, it goes into here.
Oh.
There you
We're
go.
going to fry them up.
That's going to.
But you guys can eat some raw too.
Yeah.
Everyone
All right,
does
Michael
different
wants one.
techniques. So you have 3 different people. They'll all be different techniques.
Yeah, totally.
Slightly.
All right.
Okay.
What's the deal with that?
So the movement this way, this makes it, with this pistol grip, it makes it easier to twist. When you have it round, you don't have quite the same.
Yep, that makes sense.
So right here, again, doing that twisting, just in and
It's a trick oyster, Mike.
they gave me the trick oyster.
Well, I get a trick one too.
Every oyster is different, so
Oh.
do not. It's crazy. Like, you will think it's an easy one and it's a bad one, and it's like this is a
at
very common situation. You're in a tough
Situation.
position right
I'm in
there.
a very tough
tough position. Right?
That's like that is like the hardest position to be in right there. You can
We
survive that.
totally set him up, guys.
You
Totally
did set them up because that is.
But I bet you can still get enough out of
Yeah.
that to cook it.
The shells can be weak, and that was just a weak shell. And there's no rhyme or reason.
No,
honestly.
as a farmer, we try hard, but that's not something that you can really control a ton of. You can control the shape of the oyster as a farmer, right? By how much but the thickness of it, we can't.
So it's an age, and they're growing very
Shell?
quick in Maine now. So the shells are a little weaker because they're just so it is, and it's just it's one. You do that, the next one you don't, and you do the exact same technique. So that was.
And I'll show you. I do it a little differently. When I hold mine, I tend to use the cloth, but I'll put my hand underneath it. And once again, I'll try either one. I'll try that. But so I tend to just put my hand underneath the cloth. Same deal, in and in.
So you can see.
Oh, so you can see. Yeah, sorry for the live folks. So you can see here, but same thing. So just kind of wiggling the wrist back and forth. And now I'm in, and there it goes. So as soon as I'm there, now, as John said, you just kind of wiggle and roll it across that top. And as soon as it does that, that's off. And as John said, you can come down from whichever angle to sever the abductor. I think the big thing is you don't want to butcher the meat too much if you can help it. So there it is.
So if you have it just drop down there so it holds it.
Look at this. We're learning, folks. We're all
Don't
learning.
you cut your hair.
No, I want to. I mean,
You're nervous?
this is a totally different shape than the one that I did. So I do like this actually design of this one first. The other one was just not the same. So I want to just prove myself wrong that one of these things, because it is very, very nicely like
Can
holds
somebody get the bandages?
Yeah.
there. And so it just helps, I guess, position the oyster in place, right? Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
it's a nice device.
I have another question.
Yeah.
No,
So-
I eat my words. I eat my words.
These
this is
guys are all. Oh no, that one's not.
Question.
So and that one's not. So all the ones we had before, they were all like turned this way.
The
And
hinge.
these guys are the hinge is they're turned that way. So is it how they attach to the, or they like
They're not
left-handed and
actually-
right-handed, or
Yeah, that's a good question. So they're not actually attached to anything. So oysters naturally want to grow together, right? And that's why I used to have oyster reefs in New York Harbor that ships would run aground on, up and down the Chesapeake. So oysters will naturally grow together. As oyster farmers, what our job is to do is to actually go out and we constantly have to shake them and move them. that will give them more of that cup shape. So underneath you want a nice deep cup to them. So the more that you can chip this leading edge as an oyster farmer, the more that it's going to help the oyster actually cup up, and it's going to stop them from growing together. So those are our two main goals as oyster farmers, is how to shape them nicely if you can and keep them from growing together. We get a lot of double ups and uglies out there.
Double ups and uglies?
Double ups mean oysters that have grown together, like they'll naturally grow together. So.
And can you still...
It was a bad one.
Lots of bad ones.
Very weak show.
Set me up with
No, I did set you up. You gotta be very.
So the fact that they're twisted this way or that way is just how they...
Yeah, I don't. That's
like
not something I can
right-handed.
control.
Come on, I told you I was going to have tough questions.
Yeah.
You know, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
It's which side of the river, I think.
Yeah, right. You're on the.
Which way the?
Yeah.
Okay.
What were the tides going?
Their genetics play into it a little bit, I think, too. But I think because I tend to see like that's more, I guess, the downward thing. It seems like
Versus
there's a few hatcheries that you buy these baby
yeah.
oysters from. Essentially, it really is farming. We're buying these little tiny. They're literally the size
tiny
of
seed.
like a piece of shell when they're small, but there's not too many genetic lines of these different oysters, and you start seeing these similarities between the different brands across every oyster in Maine because they are the same. They're basically all brothers and sisters, and it's how they're grown is really what defines what they look like. But the left-right, I don't know
Those
what
are
that's.
I need answers, people.
I think it's probably the way they sit in the bag when they start growing initially, and because they're pushed against themselves, and they're pushed against like the bags themselves.
Well, especially when we first take them on, you can have a few thousand in a bag too. So
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to quickly start frying some oysters. So this is for the po' boy. A po' boy is a traditional Louisiana sandwich, either made with like roast beef, baked ham, or fried seafood, shrimp, scallops, catfish, oysters. And so we are making, obviously, a fried oyster po' boy today. So what I have here is some flour mixed with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. And I'm just going to make sure that these are separated.
that's always annoying when like the top
And
shell
it looks
comes
like I
off
have
a little
6.
bit.
These aren't huge ones, so we're going to probably use more than 6 in our sandwiches if the guys don't eat them all. Then these are going
funny for
into
this
a
time.
milk,
Yeah.
water, and egg mixture. And get completely sawed in there. And then they go into panko, or you can crumb up some potato chips, like barbecue potato chips would be really good, or salt and vinegar, whatever you want. And that's just to give them crispness. How you guys doing over there?
We're
Very
making sure they get eaten.
All right, great,
Eating
great.
a lot.
I'm hungry.
So you want your oil
Great
to
source.
be about 360 degrees. If you have a small fryolator, which we sell here, then that is the best way to do it because it's easier to keep the consistent heat on the oil. And you just want them to be pretty evenly golden. And I'm just going to take my tongs here and flip these over. And I'm going to put them on a paper towel. Don't they look beautiful?
That is really cool. Yeah, now we can keep going.
Put these on
see
a
a
towel
nose come
to
out the other
drain a
side.
little bit.
Oh, here's a hinger.
And they have a few more oysters for me here, so I'll
Yep.
get these going.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about Maida, Jordi.
Yeah, so as I showed, one of those other hats that I am fortunate enough to wear is called the Maine Island Trail Association. And what that is it's actually a nonprofit organization that was started 34 years ago. And we provide access now to 255 islands along the entire coast of Maine. So it runs as far south as the New Hampshire border all the way up to the Canadian border. And if you're one of those people that likes to get out on the water and you kind of wonder, hey, is somebody going to get upset if I step foot on this island, or are they going to be happy that I'm here? We provide the access. So Maine Island Trail Association doesn't actually own any islands, we just get handshake agreements with local landowners in order for people to be able to go out and make use of these beautiful islands. And then the other big thing that we do is we actually clean up marine debris. So we remove trash from as many islands as we can along the coast of Maine. We have a full stewardship team. We had a little over 1,000 volunteer people come out last year.
Wow.
So, we have our skiffs that we use to go up and down the coast and actually clean up trash. And Now You're Cooking is a supporter of ours, and we are very much appreciative of it. And it's a fun organization, like I said, and so is Maine Oyster Company. We've been around now for 34 years, and it's a really fun group of people that love the outdoors and caring for the environment. So
Nice.
very fortunate.
That's great. Thank you. And how does somebody volunteer? Can they go on the website?
Yes, if you go on to mita.org, MITA.org, and there's a whole page about volunteering. So it is a really good group of people, and now is a great time to reach out to us if you are interested in doing some volunteer stuff, because our stewardship managers are getting that set up as we speak.
Nice.
Yeah.
And John, you have a small oyster farm, and you also have a wholesale or retail business?
Yeah, we do. We do a little bit of everything, but we started as a farm, and then we opened up a little oyster bar in Portland, and then the direct-to-consumer shipping and direct-to-partner shipping throughout the countries. It's interesting. We had these from our speech last night. I finished with our two mantras. Our two mantras are collaboration with everyone, competition with no one, and a rising wind raises all shells. And we've sort of becoming and have just kind of like an ambassador for the Maine oysters throughout the country, both just with the farmers and just pushing just Maine awesomeness out of the state. And it's just been a very cool journey. So the Maine Oyster Company it's unique. There's kind of 6 different branches within the actual enterprise, but they're all very small, almost by design. And it's been just about doing stuff like this and building community, really, because it is very powerful then to go to St. Louis and see the same concept on a larger scale, and that the unity in numbers and togetherness and how that can really help things. And we have this industry that can really save the coastal heritage of Maine. It can help save the environment. It's an amazing food supply for the entire country. We import so much food, and as we want to kind of just insulate ourselves from future challenges in the aquaculture industry, is an extremely powerful industry to be supporting. So I think it's been very fun, and we're just happy to be part of it and let it all unfold.
Cool. And right before you came here, you went to UPS to ship out how many oysters?
It was like 14 packages. There's probably like 1,500 oysters, 1,000 oysters, about 1,000.
Wow.
So
Cool.
It seems like a lot. It's not that many in the scheme of the oyster, but it is.
It sounds like a lot.
It does sound good. Yeah.
That's cool. And then I had another question that I can't think of right at the moment, but it'll come back to me. But let's get back to our sandwiches here. So we have, this is like a remoulade. It's mustard, grainy mustard, mayo, capers. The recipe, I believe, is on our website, and I'll attach it in the comments section on Facebook when we're done tonight. But so capers, hot sauce, whatever you want in there. If you like it really hot, put in cayenne. If you don't like it that hot, you don't have to. You don't have to eat it that way. So we're just going to spread a little on here. And we're going to put some pickles and some tomato, some shredded lettuce, and oysters. And you guys have done such a great job. I'm going to let you eat a lot more of your oysters. And then we're going to glob a big glob of this on the top.
Wow, Louisa, look at you go.
Does that look good to you guys?
Their mouths aren't big enough.
What's that?
Their mouths aren't big enough.
That's okay. It'll squish down. And then that goes on the top, and it all squeezes out and makes a huge mess. But if you serve that with like a small salad or a bowl of gazpacho or something like that, we have some really nice wine suggestions. There's Muscadet, which is a nice minerally kind of salty wine. Can you move the toadfish box? Then we have a cava. Bubbles are always good with oysters, don't you agree? Bubbles are always good. And then the Trion, which is a Sonoma Valley Sauvignon Blanc, but it's not super citrusy. It's a nice, clean, minerally, really, really nice Sauvignon Blanc, and that would also be a great choice. Also, beer.
And I mean, do you carry Sancerre here?
Yes. Yeah.
That Sancerre is, and I think Sauvignon Blanc is a grape of the Sancerre, and that is kind of the traditional oyster wine. They're all good, exactly. They obviously know their stuff here, but those are the right things. Sancerre, and then Chablis is another one that people pair a lot with the wine.
Nice.
But,
So, do you guys more eat cooked oysters or raw oysters?
More, I would say personally, more raw, but that's
you're
just
gonna go
not
home and
knowing
make
all
po'
these
boys,
great
though.
different options. Exactly.
And do you like them just in the shell? Do you eat them with a mignonette or any kind of sauce, hot sauce, or just
I'll let you answer that
whatever
one, John Boy.
takes you?
I like them all the different directions, I think. Raw, a lemon is great. And actually a lime and pepper is one thing that Bill Mook from Mook Sea Farm is one of the
Just
first
black
people I ever
pepper?
met who's been really a huge piece of this whole industry. That's how he eats it. It's just really good. Lime and pepper. And then the mignonettes are really good. So there's a lot of different ways to have them.
And what is a mignonette?
It's essentially champagne, vinegar, and shallots. Vinegar and shallots are the core ingredients, and then you can add many other just citrusy items to it to kind of get creative with it. But that, I think, the root is vinegar and shallots.
Awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up? Did we have any questions? Okay. Well, if you have questions, you can send them to us, or you can find Merritt Island Oysters. Do you have a website?
MerrittIslandOysters.com.
And
Pretty easy.
Maine Oyster Company?
TheMaineOysterCompany.com.
TheMaineOysterCompany.com. Yep. Or contact us, and we know how to get in touch with these guys, so we can do that. Try the po' boys. They're really good. I love fried oysters.
Yeah, I am.
They're going to eat that right now. And don't forget, next week is pho. We're going to do a beef pho and summer rolls with Chris Toy, and we're really looking forward to that. And if you want to read the book, you can probably find it at the library, and I believe it's called The Best We Could Do. And it's a graphic novel by a Thai woman whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. But it's going to be a really fun demo and really delicious, and we hope to see you then. B-Bath, Bi-Bath. The last day to submit your card is Sunday p.m. So it was going to be today, but they're stretching it until Sunday. So the last drawing will be on Monday. And we hope you've enjoyed that. I'm sure it'll be back again next year. And thank you guys so much. Thanks for the oysters. Thanks for all the really interesting information. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys around again too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thanks.